that is a powerful story about grit, sweat, and equity, required to turn a dream into a reality. The price of a dream. The spark of ambition. In the golden valleys of a small mountain village lived Julian, a 20-year-old with hands toughened by chores and a mind filled with blueprints. Julian didn't want a simple life. He dreamed of opening a woodworking studio that would craft the finest furniture in the region. But Julian's reality was modest. His father worked the local lumber yard, and his mother wove textiles to keep the family afloat. His little brother, Toby, looked at Julian as if he were already a king. One night, looking at his family's worn-out kitchen table, Julian realized, I cannot wait for a miracle. I have to build it. The first step, the humble middleman. Julian had no tools and no wood. He went to Master Silas, a legendary but cynical carpenter. Master Silas, Julian said, I have no money for your chairs. But if you give me 3 chairs on credit, I will trek them to the city market, sell them at a premium, return your full price, and keep only a tiny commission for myself. Silas chuckled. The road is long, and thieves are many. Why trust a boy with nothing? Because, Julian replied, a man with nothing has the most to lose. I will not fail you. Silas agreed. For weeks, Julian hauled heavy furniture on his back across miles of rocky terrain. He didn't just sell chairs, he sold the story of the wood. Soon, he had saved enough to buy his very own set of basic chisels. The trial of mastery. Julian eventually asked Silas to apprentice him. Teaching you takes my time, Silas warned. And time is the most expensive currency in the world. Julian arrived at the workshop at 2 a.m. every day. He swept the floors, sharpened the blades, and watched Silas's every move. His first attempts were disasters, shaky legs and uneven surfaces. He wanted to quit, but he remembered his father's voice. A dream is a debt you owe to yourself, you pay it with effort. Slowly, Julian's hands learned the language of the grain. He began crafting small jewelry boxes that the villagers adored. The shadow of competition. Just as Julian opened his own small shed, a mass-production factory opened nearby. They sold cheap, painted furniture that looked flashy but broke easily. Julian's sales plummeted. Instead of lowering his prices or his quality, Julian innovated. He went door to door, asking, what does your home need that a factory can't provide? He learned that people wanted heirlooms, things to pass down to their children. He began carving personal family stories into every piece he made. His business didn't just return, it became a legacy. The Great Fire and the Rebirth. Disaster struck during a summer lightning storm. A strike hit his shed, and by morning, Julian's wood and tools were ash. The village gathered, expecting Julian to pack his bags. But Julian stood in the embers, picked up a charred piece of oak, and said, the wood is gone, but the skill is in my hands. I started with a loan. I can start with a prayer. The community, moved by his years of honesty and hard work, rallied. They didn't give him a handout, they gave him a hand up. They helped him clear the debris, lent him tools, and prepaid for future orders. The lesson learned. Years later, Julian's studio, the Hearth and Hand, was the pride of the valley. He stood before a group of young apprentices and shared his 4 pillars of success. Investment. You don't pay for success with money, you pay with focus and hours. Resilience. A fire can burn your shop, but it cannot burn your character. Connection. Listen to your customers, your community, and they will become your shield. Action. Don't wait for the perfect tool. Start with the chisel you have. Julian proved that while nothing is free, the things we earn through struggle are the only things we truly own. The Price of a Dream, Part 2, The Master's Legacy, The Expansion of the Hearth. With the reopening of the Hearth and Hand, Julian's reputation crossed the mountain borders. He wasn't just a carpenter anymore, he was a mentor. His little brother, Toby, now a teenager, spent every afternoon in the shop, learning that wood, like life, requires a gentle touch and immense patience. Julian's success brought a new challenge, abundance. For the first time, he had more orders than he could fulfill. Some suggested he buy machines to speed up the process. If you automate, they said, you'll be the richest man in the province. Julian looked at his father's old lumber yard and then at his own calloused hands. The moment I prioritize speed over the soul of the work, the price of my dream becomes too high. We will grow, but we will grow through people, not just pistons. The call of the city. A wealthy merchant from the capital arrived one day with a lucrative offer. He wanted Julian to move his entire operation to the city to serve the nobility. I will give you a palace for a workshop and gold beyond your counting, the merchant promised. It was the ultimate temptation. Julian's family would never worry about money again. But Julian looked at the villagers who had helped him clear the ash after the fire. He looked at Silas, now elderly and sitting in the corner of the shop, still offering grumpy but golden advice. "My roots are in this soil," Julian told the merchant. "If I leave, I take the heart out of this village. My dream wasn't just to be rich, it was to build something that lasts where it matters most." The final test. Years passed, and Julian became the master that Silas once was. One winter, a severe drought followed by a harsh freeze meant the village couldn't afford new furniture. They barely had enough for heat. Julian's shop sat quiet. No orders came in. Instead of closing his doors, Julian opened them wider. He stopped making furniture and started making small, efficient wooden heaters and insulated window frames for the elders. He didn't charge a single coin. Toby asked him, "Brother, you always say nothing is free. Why are we working for nothing?" Julian smiled, handing Toby a plane to smooth a board. "Nothing is free, Toby, including kindness. I am paying back the debt of gratitude I owe this town. We aren't losing money. We are investing in the survival of our neighbors." The circle completes. When spring finally broke, the village had survived the winter, partly due to Julian's heaters. In gratitude, the townspeople didn't just return to buy furniture. They brought their children to Julian to learn the trade. Julian realized that his dream had evolved. It started as a desire for a shop, then it became a passion for craft, and finally, it became a mission to serve. He stood in the center of a bustling workshop, surrounded by the smell of sawdust and the sound of laughter. He looked at a small plaque he had carved and hung above the door. "The cost of a dream is hard work. The reward of a dream is the lives you touch." Julian had paid the price in full, and in return, he owned a life that money could never buy. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more.